There are cities that grow slowly, brick by brick, mistake by mistake. And then there are cities that appear overnight, perfect, glowing, impossible. They are not born, they are constructed dreams. In 1893, on the edge of Chicago, America built one such dream. A city so white it blinded visitors in the sun. A city without poverty, without visible crime, without chaos. A city designed not just to be admired, but to teach. They called it the White City. And when it was finished, they destroyed it. What few people understand is that the White City was not merely a World's Fair. It was an experiment. And America has been living with its consequences ever since. The late 19th century was not kind to America. Cities were swelling beyond control. Immigrants poured in by the millions. Factories roared day and night. Streets were filthy, overcrowded, violent. Slums grew faster than laws could restrain them. Chicago was the worst of it. Smoke choked the sky. Meatpacking plants bled into the rivers. Crime was rampant. Class tensions simmered constantly beneath the surface. To many elites, the city was no longer a promise, it was a threat. So when Chicago won the bid to host the World Columbian Exposition of 1893, the goal was not celebration, it was redemption. From the very beginning, the planners envisioned something radical. They would not showcase America as it was, they would showcase America as it should be. A city of harmony, of order, of beauty. A city where behavior could be shaped by space. The man chosen to oversee this vision was Daniel Burnham, an architect who believed something revolutionary. Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood. Burnham did not want a fair. He wanted a model civilization. Construction began at an almost supernatural pace. Where marshland and decay once stood, massive neoclassical buildings rose in perfect symmetry. Columns gleamed white. Canals reflected the sky like mirrors. Streets were wide, straight, and immaculate. Everything was painted white. Not for aesthetics alone, but symbolism. White represented purity, order, civilization, control. Electric lights, still a novelty, bathed the city in an otherworldly glow at night. Visitors described it as unreal, heavenly. Some said it felt like stepping into the future. Others felt something colder, something watchful. Every element of the White City was controlled. Trash was removed constantly. Guards patrolled invisibly. Crime was nearly non-existent, not because it didn't exist, but because it was designed out. Even sound was managed. Music floated gently through walkways. Machinery was hidden. Chaos was banished beyond the gates. The poor, the sick, the undesirable kept out of sight. For 6 months, over 27 million Americans walked through a city that did not exist anywhere else on Earth, and many left believing they had seen perfection. But perfection has a cost. Behind the glowing facades were brutal realities: workers dying from exhaustion, extreme surveillance, rigid moral codes, social hierarchy enforced by design. The White City was not free. It was curated. Visitors behaved differently there. Crime dropped, manners improved, violence vanished. Planners noticed, and they took notes. What Burnham and his peers learned terrified them and thrilled them. If architecture could shape behavior, if beauty could enforce obedience, if order could be engineered, then the future of America would not be decided by laws, it would be decided by design. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the White City was burned, dismantled, erased. Officially, it was temporary. Unofficially, it had shown too much, too clearly. Because once you prove that people can be shaped like buildings, you can never unlearn it. The echoes of that city did not fade. They spread into Washington, D.C., into suburbs, into malls, into corporate campuses, into every planned space where behavior feels guided. This was only the beginning. When the gates of the White City closed each night, something unusual happened. The noise stopped. Beyond the fairgrounds, Chicago remained loud, violent, unpredictable. But inside those gates, the city exhaled into silence, orderly footsteps, soft music, controlled movement. It was as if two Americas existed side by side, separated by fences and intention. And the men who built the White City noticed something deeply unsettling. People behaved better there. Not because they were told to, not because they were forced to, but because the city itself asked them to. This realization would quietly change the course of American history. Daniel Burnham understood something most politicians did not. Laws could be broken, police could be bribed, morality could be argued. But space shaped behavior without debate. Wide boulevards slowed crowds, symmetry calmed the mind, beauty inspired obedience. In the White City, there were no dark alleys, no crooked streets, no visual chaos. Everything was open, visible, legible. Visitors instinctively walked slower. They spoke softer. They followed paths without questioning why. This was not accidental. Burnham and his fellow planners, many trained in Europe, borrowed heavily from Beaux Arts architecture, a style rooted in imperial control. Rome had used it. Paris had used it. Empires understood that grandeur was not just impressive, it was disciplinary. Stand beneath a massive columned building and you feel small. Order feels natural. Authority feels justified. The White City was teaching Americans how to feel. What most visitors never saw was how tightly the fair was managed. Security was everywhere, but rarely visible. Plainclothes guards blended into crowds. Observation towers were disguised as architectural features. Lighting was carefully calculated to eliminate shadowed spaces. This was one of the first large-scale uses of environmental surveillance in the United States. Not cameras, not microphones, but sightlines. From almost any point in the White City, someone could see you. And when people believe they are seen, even subconsciously, they regulate themselves. Crime didn't vanish by chance. It was designed out. But the White City was not just a lesson in control. It was also a lesson in exclusion. The city's whiteness was not metaphorical. African Americans were largely erased from the narrative of the fair. Black achievements were marginalized, segregated into secondary exhibitions. Prominent black leaders protested. Ida Wells famously distributed pamphlets exposing the hypocrisy of celebrating civilization while denying equality. The White City presented a vision of America that was sanitized, curated, selective. An idealized future, built by some, for some. This was not lost on the planners. They understood that a perfect city required boundaries, and boundaries require enforcement. When the fair ended in October 1893, the public assumed the White City would simply fade into memory. But Burnham did not forget. Neither did the politicians, nor the industrialists, nor the urban reformers who had walked those glowing streets and imagined something bigger. They began to ask dangerous questions. What if real cities could be like this? What if poverty could be hidden? What if crime could be designed away? What if people could be guided without knowing it? Out of these questions was born a movement that would reshape America. They called it the City Beautiful movement. In the years following the fair, Burnham became one of the most powerful urban planners in the nation. His ideas spread quietly at first, then aggressively. Washington, D.C. was reimagined. Cleveland was reshaped. San Francisco, Chicago, and dozens of other cities adopted grand boulevards, monumental civic centers, and rigid zoning. Beauty became policy. But this beauty was not neutral. City Beautiful designs often displaced poor communities. Neighborhoods were demolished to make room for symmetry. Streets were widened not for people, but for processions, parades, and authority. Order was prioritized over organic life. Cities became legible to power. And yet, Americans loved it. They wanted clean streets. They wanted grandeur. They wanted to feel part of something orderly and permanent. They did not notice what was being traded away.
because the most powerful systems are the ones people willingly step into. Perhaps the most unsettling legacy of the White City was what it proved about human adaptability. Visitors did not rebel against the rules of the fair. They did not complain about the lack of chaos. They adjusted. Within minutes, their posture changed, their voices softened, their movements synchronized with the flow of the space. The city trained them. Psychologists today would call this behavioral priming. The environment subtly cues acceptable behavior without explicit instruction. In 1893, the term didn't exist, but the effect was unmistakable. The White City had rewritten human behavior in real time. Then came the fires. After the fair closed, much of the White City was destroyed, some intentionally dismantled, others consumed by flames. Official explanations cited cost, temporariness, practicality. But whispers spread. Why destroy something so beloved? Why erase something so admired? Why not preserve perfection? Some historians believe the city frightened its own creators because it worked too well. It revealed how fragile freedom could be when beauty and order were aligned against it. Yet even in destruction, the White City did not die. It transformed. Its ideas slipped into blueprints, its lessons embedded themselves in planning manuals, its logic resurfaced in suburbs, campuses, shopping malls, and government complexes. Every place where movement feels guided, every space where behavior feels subtly shaped, every environment where you feel calm but not entirely free, those are its echoes. And there was one more thing the White City left behind. Fear. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet realization that a society could be redesigned without its consent, that control could be beautiful, that obedience could feel comfort, that perfection could be persuasive. America never built another White City, but it never stopped trying to recreate its effects.